Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Record of attendance. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Not so far. So we're...
On the record of attendance, Your Worship, would you make a motion that we excuse Councillor Dennis from attendance at this meeting as a result of her treatment?
Thank you. Moved, seconded by Jim. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, so Jerry or Jeff?
So, Your Worship, at our last Committee of the Whole meeting, the operating budget proposal from staff was brought to Committee of the Whole, and the Director of Finance went through a brief overview of the document. We left it with you to review, to try to work your way through, and if you had questions, there was an invitation to meet with the Director of Finance at your leisure, or at your convenience, I should say, and we also scheduled this meeting. We did make a motion at the last meeting to recommend the budget to Council, but the purpose of this meeting as it relates to the operating budget was for you to ask any questions that you might have for clarification, or raise any issues that you may see within the operating budget. So Jerry is here, and I guess probably the way to proceed might be with just a simple question and answer, and we'll carry that as far as it goes, and then we'll move through to the capital budget.
Okay. Go ahead there, Jim.
I spent a little bit of time with Jerry, and thank you very much, Jerry, and expressed some of my concerns to him. And one of the bottom lines of the budget is that, and I just need for clarification before I begin to make a motion, the results of what was presented by Jerry and discussed briefly will result in a 5-cent decrease in our existing tax rate, Jerry?
Yeah, that's the final year of the sewer rate adjustment. So sewer rates have been increased for this year, and there'll be an offsetting tax rate decrease. So, I mean, the town will see the same, the effect is the same revenue coming in for the town, just in a different line, that's all.
So I would like, I've been saying this now for 2, maybe 3 budgets. I would like to not go along with a 5-cent rate decrease. I'm just not sure how much I want to decrease it by. But can I just go through my thoughts? Last year, we took $75,000 out of surplus to balance our budget. And that I never like to do, and I talked to Jerry about that. And this year, I'm thinking about the one particular area that I've been keenly interested in is the activity of the transit system. So I discovered in the budget, in discussion with Jerry, that our cost of operation was about $150,000. And our income was approximately $25,000 or $7,000. $150 expense and about $25,000 or so income. Previously, when Gary Hudson, when the other bus was operating, we gave him a grant of $60,000. And I had hoped that would be my goal here as a council, that we could achieve that goal today or tomorrow. And I've been talking with Natalie a little bit and teasing a little bit that we need to have a way to advertise and promote the transit system. A long time ago, over 100 years ago, the transit system was called the tram car. So I thought that maybe we could somehow use the name tram in our current system. Going to smile at me, people. Pam's going to wonder where I've been, but so that Councillor Phil might say to his wife, Darlene, let's go out on the tram and tram it. So let's not. So then I got to worrying further and look at how nice the bus is, the tram car is, that maybe Councillor Hood and myself, we could renew our marriage vows on the transit bus. And we would have Bill Newell come and do it, and we could use it as a fundraiser. So we would get on the transit bus, renew our vows. You're smiling, Don, are you? Yeah. Am I crazy? And then after,
Pleading the fifth.
and then after we've achieved our goal there, we would take the new tram car and we would drive to the lighthouse, whereby we would have a fundraiser for Bill Newell's project in the new restaurant. And anyway, I got to throw some, make you guys smile at this a little bit, but all said and done, we have the Yark coming up, and we have to fund. Initially, you need $20,000 to $50,000 approximately to fund the activity of the foundation of the raising money for the activity of the Yark. And so I just want to be sure we need more flexibility in the budget, Jerry and my fellow councilors, Mayor, Jeff. And so I'm, I know you're allowed to smile at me, Jeff. Oh dear. Anyway, it's serious business, and I'm not sure what the number should be, but I want to make a motion that the number should be 3 cents. Instead of reducing it 5 cents, I would like to add 3 cents to our current tax rate. What does that mean, Jerry?
$60,000.
We're going to go from what number to what number based on your...
Yeah, roughly 25.
So I don't want to, you know, I don't want to...
Well,
Are you looking, you're looking at a 5-cent reduction and a 3-cent increase, basically, so it's a net of 2-cent decrease? Is that what you're talking?
That's what I'm talking, yeah.
Okay.
That's, but so let's talk about that, because that, you know, respectfully, that might not be a hardship for some of us around the table. But what about out there in the marketplace? And that's why, Cliff, I was wondering if we could, anyway, we've started the discussion. You've heard my teasing a little bit, and hopefully I made you guys smile a little bit, and go on, someone else. So I don't know how to make a motion not knowing exactly what we want. So I'd like to leave it like that for now and get comments from staff and fellow councilors.
so the question for me is, what does it look like if you keep the 5 cents in there? Like, I guess what I'm saying is, could it be cost neutral for folks so that they're not? Go ahead, Cliff. You got to put your light on though.
It's gone up or down,
Sorry, Bill.
right across the board. If you took it across the board on the residential,
Come all on. We're good.
they're roughly the same. I mean, there's been no major change in the
Your assessments this year, and Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're up about 2% on both the residential and the commercial, which brings us back to where we were about 5 years ago.
But that's, so that includes all the new stuff.
That's right.
And therefore, it probably doesn't mean that if we leave it the same, a person's individual taxes with some minor variations is going to be about the same.
That's what I'm trying to. That's where I'd like to get.
Well, the sewer rate reduction, the one complicating thing is that it's a reduction for both residential and commercial based on where the sewer rates are. So right now, we're talking about the residential side. The commercial side as well would see a further reduction this year, and I'll just grab that here. Should be right there. Yeah, we're looking at the current year with the sewer rate increases and the way it's broken out with residential and commercial customers. The residential side would see a 5-cent tax reduction. The commercial side would go from 4.31 to 4.24, so a 7-cent reduction. So in the end, there's about a $200,000 change from tax revenue to sewer revenue right now. So if you didn't change any of the tax rates, it would be a couple $100,000 increase in revenue because the sewer rates are going up.
Just say that again, I didn't.
So what we did when we did our sewer rate study, we broke down our customers between residential and commercial. So when we looked at the average use and the use per basically the pipe size or the meter size, we were able to break down and look at how much of our revenue would come from commercial customers and how much the extra revenue would come from residential customers. So when I looked at this current year, residential customers, there'd be about $125,000 increase in sewer rates, so that equates to about a 5-cent reduction in their taxes. On the commercial side, it worked out to about 7 cents.
So we're taking it out of ourselves and our businesses in the sewer rate.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is have the sewer rate revenue, the sewer money come in to the town through the sewer rate and pay for all things, I guess, associated with the sewer system.
Yeah, because there's
Right.
quite a discrepancy 5 or 6 years ago, right?
Yeah, there was, and so it's similar to what we try to do with our garbage rates. So we review our garbage rates periodically and say, here's our garbage contracts, here's our tipping fees, all that kind of stuff, and we try to make sure that our garbage rate reflects the actual cost of handling the town's garbage.
So, Your
And
Worship,
collection.
if I could explain a little bit more, and that's the basic premise. What we did, so Halifax Regional Municipality, 5-10 years ago, they incorporated their sewer into their water utility. And so we hired Jerry Eisner and asked him to do a study on our sewer system that would be the same as if it were incorporated into the utility. In other words, what would the revenue have to look like, and how much are we subsidizing it through the tax rate? So the idea being that if in 5 years of phasing this in, if we wanted to apply to the UARB to incorporate our sewer into the utility, there would be no rate bump at that time. And it gave us 5 years to think about it. So what's happened is they did their study with the same rigor as they use when they go to the Utility Review Board, and they showed us that there was basically a $1 million subsidy to the sewer system through the town general rate, and that's above and beyond what we've been collecting as a sewer rate. So most people would probably assume that the sewer rate was covering the sewer cost. Now it was coming significantly short. So the 5-year phase-in has allowed us to moderate the tax rates accordingly based on where the money was coming from, and put it into the sewer rate and out of the tax rate. So this is the final year of that phase out. So as Jerry explained, this will put the tax rates where they would have been without the subsidy, and the sewer rates will be where they should be in order to cover costs. And we have not increased, net of that, we haven't increased either tax rate even a penny in those 5 years.
So going forward, are we set up so that all money raised in the sewer rate is going to be, it will be withheld and used within the sewer, within that part of our budget?
It won't be a separate budget, one against the other, but it is a metric that we'll follow and try and advise you on the sewer
In
rate.
other words, the sewer rate is part of the sort of consolidated revenue fund.
Absolutely, unless we took the step of going to the UARB and saying we would like to apply to include our sewer system in with our water utility. Now, I've talked to Jerry Eisner about that, and I've talked to people in Halifax about that, and I don't think that there are compelling reasons to necessarily go there, but that's a whole other question. The basic thing for us is if we're collecting a rate to cover a cost, is it actually covering that cost? And I think we're pretty
there.
much
Pretty
there.
well.
Are we there at the end of this 5
I
years?
think we're pretty much there, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
I
should
guess
be there.
that's my key question at this point.
Yeah.
And
I guess,
To leave the rates.
just one more,
Rate the same.
one more comment. Just over the 5 years, what it's meant is the residential rates dropped a total, including the 5 for this current year, a total of 13 cents. So most of the increases affected the residential in the last couple of years. So there's a 4-cent reduction last year and 5-cent reduction this year in taxes.
Right.
So a total of 13 cents over 5 years. The commercial rate has come down 38 cents, from 4.62 to 4.24. Now, again, it's different dollar values attached to it, but that's the way the sewer system is being used as well by commercial versus residential, and what those different pennies mean, like, tax-wise.
Do you mind if I ask another question?
Yeah, please.
It might put you on the spot, in that it's nothing that we've done yet, it's just something that I've been discussing. And that is, if we change the way that we repair sewers, how much would that affect everything on a financial basis in terms of what sewer responsibility is? It will affect it, or would, if something were to be done.
Yeah. So it's kind of a hypothetical.
It is.
I can tell you generally you'd be taking on about 2,600 sewer laterals. That's a significant amount of infrastructure.
Yes, it is.
I don't know what Dave would say the expected life of a sewer lateral would be, but let's say that we said 60 years. If you spread that out over time, that's a lot of laterals failing every year. However, that's what an engineered life might be, but the reality is that they're not all going to fail at 60 years, and so it's hit and miss. At the end of the day, there will be sewer laterals fail. There will be other issues that arise within sewer laterals that the town would get called in to deal with, most likely after hours. And at the end of the day, you'll do a X number of repairs. That will be incremental cost, just like it would be for the homeowner, except it would be borne by the town. And so I guess what I would say is we'd make an educated guess at what that would be, put it on the rate.
I think I know of 3 instances just over the last several months, Your Worship, you included that. I think one was commercial and the other 2 were residential that were in the $45,000 range when you had the 3 of them together.
Yeah.
So that's including excavation, all the other stuff, so.
And there is another thing that will happen as sewer rates and water rates increase is conservation, right? So people will conserve water. That affects both their water rate and their sewer rate, okay? At the end of the day with the water, it is a zero-sum game. There has to be enough revenue generated through the utility to pay all the bills. And so if everybody's using a little less water, the rates will have to go up. So conservation is good, but it's not necessarily going to result in you paying less if everybody does it equally. And the same can be said of the sewer. If we are going to pay the cost of the sewer with the sewer rate, if there was less water going through for one reason or another, then the rates would have to move up.
In order to balance out the number. It's not
But
simple.
how crazy is that you use less water, so your costs will go down and your costs will
And
go down, right?
costs end up to go up. Yeah.
So if everyone moves together, right, that is what the assumption is there. If everyone moves together and conserves at the same rate together, then everybody's consumption goes down, so everyone's rate must go up. But if you conserve more than fellow citizens, you will save.
You'll save money.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. I got a bunch of lights on.
I think the only question or comment, and Councillor Hood was at the session in Halifax when Don Mills was speaking about people getting, just except for government people, getting increases in pay. There hasn't been a relative increase for people in 9 or 10 years, right? And I think we embarked on a 5-year plan, and this is the 5th year. I say, let's suck it up this year, and then next year look at it again, because we could have done it last year, and when you're squeaking by on $4,000 surpluses and $400 surpluses, I know it's tight, and I know Jerry and Jeff have done a lot of work, and Dave, Frank at the Recreation, all the guys have really pared it down and came up with their best budgets. But I think we owe it to the citizens 1 year just to do it. Make it the 5th year. We promised that over 5 years we would do this, and this is the 5th year in that program. I think we can see that Jerry's done the work that we can balance the budget or have a small surplus this year, and then look at it again next year. I know there's going to be some costs, like Jim mentioned, the arts facility, could be some terminal costs, could be some other things, but we might have to take those on a case-by-case basis and see where we're at.
The promise is what sticks with me. When you say you promise for the 5 years, I guess oh, sorry, go ahead and then Jim.
Sorry,
No, let Jeff go. Go ahead, Jeff.
Just on the promise, I think to be clear about what the promise was, is that we promised we would implement this program, and we promised that we'd be transparent, that we would not maintain or increase the tax rate and try and hide it within a decreasing tax rate program. That if we were going to increase the tax rate, that we'd be very clear about what the tax rate would have been through this program. Excuse me. We'd be very clear about what the tax rate would have been, and that there was an increase in the tax rate outside of this program. So it wasn't that we wouldn't increase it, it's that we would be transparent and clear about it.
Okay.
So, Your Worship.
Oh, hang on, Jim's next, and then
Okay, I'm sorry.
don't forget what you're going to say, though. Go ahead, Jim.
It's been difficult for me to I just think that we need to do a little something besides, because I know when Jeff and Jerry first presented, I heard their budget from their department heads. There was an $800,000 shortfall, and very quickly down to $400,000. Jerry worked really hard to get it down to what it is now. That's one more factor which tells me, plus I've had remind you people that we took $75,000 from surplus last year. And I'm just concerned about the transit system. Teased a little bit about it, but that was just me coming out. But I'd like to see an increase. And if the increase, if I understand it, Jerry, we're going to lose 5 cents off of the tax rate this year. How about if we just lose 3 cents?
Make that your motion.
So moved.
I'll second the motion, Your Worship.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, discussion now.
Phil is away, so we should.
So that would be, my question would be, so that would be both rates, as in commercial and the other rate that is at 7%, what is a?
That's commercial,
I see
yeah.
your 3% off of both, or off your 3% off of,
3 cents, are we talking
or
about?
3 cents, yeah, off of both, or 3 cents off of?
3 cent increase on both, is what you're talking about?
The motion would, if it's carried, in my understanding, would give you 3 cents on both commercial and residential.
Okay.
More than what you're budgeting as right now.
Right, right.
2 cents increase.
So that's like,
No, that's not what Cliff said.
no,
It's a 3 cent increase.
3 cent increase. Down 5, up 3.
Tax-wise, you're paying
And down 7, up 3.
this thing.
The tax rates, right, but yeah, I guess just the transparency that Jeff was talking about, it's, For the sewer rate, it's a 5-cent residential decrease, a 7-cent commercial decrease, and then we're going to add or increase tax rates by 3 cents on both.
No, I didn't,
Which were roughly,
I'm telling you, numbers just fall.
It's all right, Pam. I want, because I'm not sure exactly where we should be, except that I feel we should have an increase. I need to have also an understanding too. So, and if Jeff can help us and Jerry, I'd appreciate it.
Sorry, it's just this whole up and down
Yeah,
thing, I
so-
don't get it.
Okay,
I'm
so
really bad
there,
with it.
it's very important that we be transparent about what we're doing. And so aside from any discussion today about changes in tax rate, we would have reduced the residential rate by 5 cents and reduced the commercial rate by 7 cents in order to make that budget work. What I'm hearing you say is that you would like to then increase those rates by 3 cents. I'm looking at you, but increase the, so what it is that you'd be increasing the tax rate by 3 cents after the 5-cent reduction is applied.
So why can't you just call it 2 cents?
Because it's a 2-cent reduction, and again, to be transparent, you are increasing the tax rate.
After the sewer rate,
by 3 cents.
after the sewer rate adjustment,
After
you're
the sewer rate
increasing the tax
adjustment,
rate.
you're increasing the tax rate
So
by 3 cents.
people are gonna be paying more.
Well, if they, at the end of the day, if they don't change their consumption on the water, they will pay a little bit more on the sewer, and because of the 3 cents, if their assessment has stayed the same, they'll pay a little bit more on the taxes. So on a $100,000 home, let's see if I get this math right, on a $100,000 home, you're gonna pay an extra $30. On a $50,000 home, $15.
and how much is the town going to net when you combine both the commercial and the residential?
A penny on the,
And in terms of flexibility in our budget?
3 cents on both rates would be roughly $120,000.
Thank you. Well, 75,000 on the residential?
Yeah, it's 27,000 per penny there on the residential and about 13,000 on the commercial. So it's about $40,000 per penny.
It's a pretty thin surplus, but that would
It-
give you,
Yes.
I want everybody to have their say from the bottom of their heart and also their mind too.
Yeah, if,
Jeff has explained it wonderfully well,
yeah.
and we need to understand that.
So if we don't say what we're thinking here, then it's not all on the table and you can't make the best decision. Because I haven't decided which way I want to go yet, because I'm thinking, I know 120,000 is 120,000, but is 120,000 worth going out there and saying, we just up the tax rates? If you're gonna do it, do it. If you're gonna do it, do it. Like this piddling around with 2 cents. Go ahead.
We're doing so much. This council and the previous council are doing so much. And I just need to give Jeff, like we haven't sold the high school yet. It may sell soon. We have so many good things that could happen and make it easier for us to move into a new area quickly without having to worry about dollars and cents all the time. And you know, if the web.com project happens, we got to find more property for them.
You said that on live streaming, but good for you.
I saw you smile.
What's that?
Everyone.
Go ahead.
It's just,
I don't know
it's
what
the
you're talking about, but go
$6,000
ahead.
that I showed,
Yeah, good
6,000.
one.
Phil?
What, yeah, and you're talking about what we charge for the services we give, like Jim said about the transit service is an extra $120,000 cost, or actually $60,000 cost, but I think we're providing a better service, and we're looking to maybe expand that, right? So there's great points. You know, the YARC, there's the redevelopment we're talking about at the Mariner Center, there's the YMCA possibilities. Even though if those don't come on stream this year or next year, you still have to engage engineers and people to do the studies on the recreational uses and all the other things that will happen at a Mariner Center or at a YMCA if you keep it downtown or if you put it at the Mariner Center. So you can Famously, as one councillor used to say, you can go two ways on this one. I can look at this one two ways, but are we going to make the decision today, or we're going to? I've got, you know, it's you're going to get hurt politically, and I don't think we do this for the political reasons.
No.
But you're going to get hit politically for the 2 or 3 cent increases just as much as you're going to do for the 7, 8, or 9, or 10 cent increase.
That's what I'm saying.
You guys were
Come big or
crucified.
stay home. That's what I'm
Crucified
saying.
15 years ago, or whatever, how many years ago, when you did the basically the Mariner Center Fund, right? And that worked out well. That worked out for the benefit of all 3 municipalities in Yarmouth County, and what a generator that's been for us.
So let
But
me
those
ask
guys
this.
bit the bullet, and they did it big time.
They did.
Or as the president would say, bigly.
So
They
we
did
have-
bigly, man.
So we have the Ark and a whole bunch of other things coming up. Do we bite the bullet again,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, sure.
I think a nutshell version, way of dealing with this is the budget that you have in front of you forecasts a $6,000 surplus on, what's our total?
19 million?
9 million?
No,
19.
$19 million budget, 6,000 on a $19 million budget. If you go with Jim's motion, it'll be a $125,000 surplus on a $19 million budget. I say that's a very slim surplus, but certainly better than trying to manage with a $6,000 surplus. That's what I think. And that's all I can say as seconder of the motion. I've had my shot.
No, I mean, I know you get 2 times to speak, not in this forum. Speak as many times as you need to, because we need to get it all out there on the table. It's just weighing and measuring. Like, I'm not a nickel and dimer. I'm like, come big or stay home, right? I'm thinking $120,000, really? Go ahead, Wade.
Well, here's the thing, and I guess I see both sides of it. We do have some big things, and let's be honest, we're all excited about the big things that are happening. We went knocking on doors last year. What did I hear mostly? Well, it wasn't.
Roads.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Who pays for those? We do.
do.
So there is all that. But on the other side, to me, is the fact that this is not a particularly well-off area, with a lot of people who have their issues when it comes to making ends meet. I have no idea how many people go into some kind of a problem when it comes to paying their taxes or anything like that. I don't even assume to know. I've never looked at it. But I don't want this to cause problems with our citizens. And I don't mean upset those citizens. What I mean is I want to make sure that those who are just barely making ends meet continue to do so, are not going to be hurt by this. That's my biggest concern right now.
So that would be, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you say $30 a year? Like
Yeah.
$3, not even $3, $2.50 a month,
that's what a 3 cent would do.
right?
15 tens.
On $100,000.
On a $100,000 home, right?
Right. Don?
I would say that $30,000 a year, even if it's $30 a year, to some families, is a hardship. We have to start looking at our citizens and saying, I'm more lenient towards two cents, thinking that it would be $20. I'm just saying that the less hardship that we're putting on, I do agree with Councillor over there, that there's more people in this town that you believe that are under hardship. And I don't see any increases in too much in wages, too much in more opportunity to work. I just see a drastic situation in our town. And I know that there's people out there that can afford it, no problem at all. And so we definitely got to consider
You
that.
want to make a motion to amend the motion that is on the table?
I would, a friendly amendment to, I could live with 2 cent increase. And I know that we're nickel and diamond, but I'm still thinking about better than 10 cents.
I'll second the motion.
So the discussion is now on the 2 cents. Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is, I mean, Jerry, I just need you to be frank. Does 2 cents make a difference? If we're gonna, if it's just gonna be, I'm gonna be blunt, if it's gonna be a fight out there in the public for the $80,000, is it worth it? Or is it worth it to wait till next year and when we really are going after funds for the Ark or something like that, like we did with the Mariner Center, and then you make it bigger, but if we can't do, I don't know. I'm literally stuck. Because I think a lot of the, I mean, yeah, I wish I understood the demographic better, because I think a lot of the people that have hardships are renters, but I'm probably wrong on that.
If you look,
You're on.
or Cliff was, but if you look over the last, and I'm only going to be, since I've been here, over the last, this is whether my 9th budget, Jeff, or 8th budget, we haven't increased taxes in 8 years, and we've had the memorandum of understanding that got canceled on us. It cost an extra $300,000 a year. We haven't increased taxes, residentially or commercially, since I've been here, and the assessments have been flat. Now, some of the things you can incorporate, and Councillor Hood's over there on the PVSC, is there is a discrepancy in the cap. There's some cap space there, so that's another conversation. That's another unused revenue for us and for other municipal units right across the province. Like, I think the cap might be the wrong word to use for that, but you hear it when I've been, I think 3 elections, municipal elections, going door to door, and I think the first thing I got elected mayor, Jeff asked what the issues were going door to door, and taxation was always 4, 5, 6, 7 down on the list,
Yeah,
if it made it at all.
Nobody mentioned it to me.
What Councillor Cleveland said was bang on this time was road issues and sidewalk issues, recreational facilities, right? Transportation issues, and I'm not talking transportation, I mean highway, whatever, I'm talking about the transit system. So I think you can say to the citizens when you go out, Your Worship, we haven't really increased taxes since we've been here. We haven't increased taxes in the last 4 or 8 years. The assessments have been flat, and that's the old thing when they first got elected, say, oh man, this is great, so the tax rate stays the same. But the assessments went up by 10 or 11%, right? So it's a false positive. Yeah. But I have no problem supporting Councillor Barry's motion. Councillor Barry spends a lot of time in the school system. He spends a lot of time in the same areas of town that I do. That it is a hardship. $20 is a hardship. But if you break it down $2 a month, it might not be as bad. But we are increasing our services. We are increasing value for money. We have been downloaded on from the provincial government on other areas. Like we're talking about, Councillor Hood's going to say at the water utility about some of the provisions that's going to happen over the next few years that we're going to have to pay for. So I think we've done very well, Jeff and Jerry and the team that we have around us and all the managers. So I have no problem supporting Councillor Barry's motion, but not only do you look at it this year, but you look in the last basically 8, 12 years, you haven't, except for that. I think the last increase was the moldy, yeah. And how many years has that been, Cliff? 12? Or 12 years ago or longer? Yeah.
So what I'm saying is 12 years without an increase, and we're going for 2 cents.
Yes.
Really?
That's pretty good.
Okay. Not sorry, Wade, but I don't know how else to be but honest, right? Like it's. Go ahead. I mean, I have to say this, right? I have to publicly explain this, so I have to. Yeah, I understand it now, but I just, yeah, go ahead.
Your longer-term strategy around paying for some of the things that you'd like to do, I mean, you have, I mean, very sound fiscal practices, town of Yarmouth. I
do.
think beyond
Yes.
what any other municipality is doing that I know of. And I think to whack the community with a large tax increase, in the area of 10 cents or so at one time would be, at this point, the community is not ready for it, it's not expecting it.
Yeah.
I think a penny or two on the rate, it does take money out of property owners and business owners' pocket, a small amount, but I think you've given a significant amount over the last 8 years to justify a modest increase. And I think, if you are going to think about a bigger amount with a specific purpose, even phasing that in over a number of years, I think is a little kinder to your taxpayers than a single whack. But that's just my opinion. Ultimately, there's a bit of political strategy involved in how you deal with this. And, it is not, it's almost a symbolic increase with due respect to people who will, be going through hardship. It helps us a bit on the bottom line, gives us a little bit of a cushion for those things that might come up that we don't see coming. I've said, and in fact we said, Councillor Hood, back when there was a significant increase 10 or so years ago, I remember some of the discussion at that time was it was necessary, it was long overdue, and we should increase the tax rate a penny every year or so that we never find ourselves in that position again. And here we sit 10 years later, having not made any increases since. And so, I encourage you to think about, tax burden and what is going on in terms of market assessment versus growth. If we're decreasing the tax rate, we're certainly making it easier for growth, which is obviously what we want. We're in a bit of an upswing right now. I see good things happening on Main Street, and those things are happening because of good decisions that you guys have made and good signals you've given to the community. There are demands with transit systems and facade programs and so on that we need to pay for, and we have squeezed it, and we would move forward with a $6,000 surplus if that was council's wish. We've given you a budget that's balanced with very little cushion, so this certainly would be welcome and not necessarily catastrophic for anybody.
That's the question that I was asking, like, is this worth the,
If I can just make a
message?
quick comment to add on to Jeff's statement there and try to answer Pam's question is like, my fear with this budget, truthfully, is that in the past, things would come up later in the year and we would say, do we have the money? And typically in our budget, there's a number of items that we plan to do that aren't necessarily or don't necessarily have to be done in the current year. We can wait another year to do them, and we would just choose to defer that to do what's come up that's urgent. All those projects basically have been eliminated in this budget, so there's very little wiggle room in the future when something comes up right now.
okay, that's important.
Right? The only thing that's in there, if someone said, do we have $30,000 to do something today? The only thing in this budget right now that's kind of extra is we have $50,000 in to do a waterfront study that you want to do. So
Okay,
there's not really any other $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 projects in here that we can say, we won't do those, we'll do this instead. So $80,000 will make a difference later in the year, I would suspect.
all right, that helps. Okay, somebody's on, it's gonna be you first,
So I
Cliff.
think mechanically, Councillor MacLeod will withdraw your motion, and I'll agree as seconder, and that I think will leave Councillor Barry's motion on the table. And we'll second it. So we take a vote. We're going to take
We're gonna vote on the amendment. Okay, did you want to speak first, Jim? Go ahead.
No, I was just wanting to make sure that, before I lose my voice, must be that darn transit system.
Okay, so the amendment is the 2-cent increase. Okay? Question's been
Question.
called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. So now we are voting on the amended motion, which is
To vote yes.
what Jim
As
said, except with the 2 cents. Yes, okay, we understand that? Okay? Hmm? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, okay. So can I call for the question?
Question?
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? It was unanimous, right? Yeah. Good,
Good job, folks, good job.
yeah. Thanks, everyone. Go ahead, Don.
Preparing for the future, though, I think over this span of this term and bringing this up again, I think it's important that we start engaging with the public or whoever we need to foresee that all the projects that we have in the future will be an increase somewhere. We have to start thinking about an increased method, and I'm saying preload it now so that in the future that it's not a gasp to people,
Yeah.
that they know right away that over the next couple of years there's going to be many projects that are going to take place, and then for us to foresee roads and sidewalks and all that stuff that comes along with it costs money, therefore an increase has definitely got to take place.
Yeah.
So they're prepared. Right now, I don't know if they're prepared for this one, but they will be.
Yeah,
But in the future, we need to prepare them.
I agree. I agree 100%. It's all in the message. It's going to be and it'll be in the message that I give when I deliver this.
And the other thing, Your Worship, and I was surprised that it wasn't brought up, Donnie Berry said about being prepared in future projects. In this provincial election campaign, I haven't heard anything about the disparity in roads between towns and rural municipalities. Like, I thought maybe a town caucus, we might have talked about it for a minute. I thought, when a couple of the platforms haven't really touched on that part. They talked about rural road, they talked about twinning, they talked about some of the other things, and I know Jeff has had some ideas on what's the word, not service exchange, or money, kind of a service exchange, but when it comes to rural municipalities on the role they have to pay for upkeep of their roads.
There has been money in the budget from one of the parties to give more money to rural roads.
Well, and when they talked about today at the candidates debate, when you're talking twinning 76 or 74 kilometers of road, and it's going to cost between, I think, $450 and $500 million
Yeah.
for 76 kilometers.
Exactly.
Man, that could be that's a lot of paving, man.
It is. Go ahead, Jeff. I thought I pressed your button.
You did,
Sorry.
but I was...
Oh, all right.
So on the exchange that I'd spoken to you guys about a couple weeks ago, an education kind of roads exchange, as just a policy idea, I think it's a pretty good one, but it's just an idea. On a positive, proactive initiatives, the Deputy Minister of Municipal Affairs called together the CAOs from across the province a few weeks ago to talk about what she defined as structural issues with municipalities, and very clearly there would seem to be a consensus in the room that the issue was not structure so much as it was municipal responsibilities. We have 3 types of municipalities in the province, all with different responsibilities. So you have your regionals, your towns, and your rurals. And one of the things that the towns have that rurals don't is the infrastructure, right? You have full responsibility for the roads, and because of the density that towns typically have, you have a lot of other infrastructure necessary to provide services. In rural areas, people have their roads provided through the provincial system, Department of Transportation, paid for by taxes collected by the province, and then other things like water and sewer are typically provided by themselves on their own property, so not within a tax rate. So the discussion with the Deputy Minister in just that one day that we had was quite positive and identified a number of the issues. We have asked, and AMA has asked, the Deputy Minister to follow up with another meeting to continue that conversation, because we think that it is our responsibility collectively as administrators to try and provide you guys as councils, as well as assist the Deputy Minister in finding solutions, policy solutions to the problems that seem to exist. So That's what we would endeavor to do, and, we hope that if we're given the opportunity, that we'll come up with maybe options that the province can consider to help to deal with the roads issue. It is the single biggest issue, and because it's a very big ticket item, it's one that nobody wants to talk about politically because there's not a solution in hand. And so part of what we would endeavor to do is try to tackle the big issues with policy solutions that could be implemented in a way that was politically acceptable. So a lot of times, frankly, when we come up with things like the town's task force report or the fiscal review responses, we think about it in terms of what are good policy recommendations without considering the political side of it, is how do you make this work politically? And so that is one of the items that came up in discussion, is that any good strategy covers that element as well, because lots of good policies die on the desk because you can't implement them and have people understand at any level, that it's actually, good policy and responsible policy. So I think there's room in that whole discussion for the education, roads, and all those other things to come up. I would, and I did suggest this to Her Worship, is that we not put the cart before the horse, not necessarily do the politics before we've got the report and the momentum. Not to, we need to build a little momentum around this and have some degree of consensus if we're going to be successful.
Thank you.
Good, everyone? Okay, so Jerry's there. Question 2. Anybody, any more questions for Jerry? I'm looking on that budget considerations page there. Did we fill that compost position, number 6?
No.
No, oh, okay. Yes, okay, good, okay. Yeah, it's been on. Cliff, you can, is your light on to speak? No? Okay. No, I'm almost 5 years in and I still can't get the buttons right.
So, Your Worship, we have a motion from the last meeting recommending the budget to council, which will come up Thursday night. We have a motion from this meeting to increase the tax rate 2 cents after the 5 cent and 7 cent reductions. We don't need any more motions from council, but certainly we're open to questions on the operating budget if there are more. It's not an exciting operating budget. It's kind of a tight one, so it's not a lot of new stuff going to be happening in there. If it's your wish, if there are no other questions on the operating budget at this time, and again, Jerry's door is open and my door is open anytime to talk about the operating budget up until Thursday, and then of course anytime throughout the year. And Jerry will be reporting regularly on our progress with the budget. If I could I turn your attention to the capital budget?
Yes.
So the allocation for the capital budget is
Is there a copy? Do you all have a copy of that? I have some here.
yep. I have
I
one.
got one today.
Actually, Jerry.
I got it. What's this one, Jerry? That's the operating.
Can I get a fresh one, Jerry? Can I get one that's stapled so
Okay. You want a red binder too, Jeff? You want a binder for that?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll quickly, again, you've had this for a little while, and if there are any questions, now would be a good time. So first of all, to say that the budget that you've recommended, the operating budget, does include the necessary transfer to the capital fund to fund the projects as are recommended here. So the first page of the capital budget shows 2 complete. And you can see that there were amounts that were budgeted in the prior budget. These are amounts that are remaining. That money's already provided, it's there, and those projects are underway or complete at this point. There are some amounts in the 17-18 column that are required to complete those projects. We've provided a contingency around the Killam Wharf project that you'll see in line 15. That's assuming that the assessment gives us the opportunity to take the least expensive option to maintain the Killam Wharf. The next big section is the done in, what Jerry's called the done in 2016-17, but not funded. So those are things that came up throughout the year that weren't funded in the budget, but we did proceed with the understanding that they would be paid for out of the 17-18 levy, and there's 362,000 within that, including 150 for Stars Road Multipurpose Trail. Half of that is coming back to us through a grant from the province.
24 there. When's the Jarvis Road Culvert going in? Do we know? Do we know that date?
It's in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It looks a lot like a bridge.
yeah, I know. I had a question about that from
Yeah.
somebody and I can't remember.
Yeah, so that's the, so we had some stormwater issues on Argyle Street in that neighborhood, and one of the recommendations was that we increase the size of the culvert bringing water across Jarvis Road. And I believe, Dave, the ditches may have been dug as well, or redug to some extent with that as well. Yeah, so the water flow capacity going through that area right now is more suitable to the storm loads.
So what's the grading for the dog park? What's that? I just had a question about when is the culvert and the grading going in for the dog park?
That's for the actual entrance, is it?
Yeah, that's a separate thing, and that, there's been no final decision on that by council as yet, and I believe that there was a motion of council or direction from council that we put a hold on further activities there until an issue we discussed is dealt with.
Okay. That's who's asking.
Okay. So,
Yep, go ahead. Cliff.
So on that, your worship, on that dog park issue, as I understand it and recall, at present, other than the culvert that we committed to install, we have no expectation or ask in terms of the capital improvements that are to be made to construct the dog park. It's being proposed to us as a self-funded by the promoters, at least at this point in time. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's the way I understood it.
Thank you.
okay, so then we move into the next page, page 2, and we have items discussed last year for 17-18. And I'll highlight in here that, okay, so your leftmost column is the 17-18 items. So there were 2, street paving, which has been increased to 350,000 from 250,000, and a fabric building for storing and screening finished compost. So that's an addition for the compost facility. It's actually replacing some greenhouses that formerly were on the site that were no longer. It is required as part of our operating permit, and so it's in the budget to do. And then there are some new additions in the next section down for 17-18, and there's 320,000 of those. So replacing a truck, small truck, replacing light standards in the Yarmouth South Playground, fire hall phone/communication system at 25,000, lift station repair and upgrade at Gardner Street, that is necessary, and Cliff and Brown Street addition to the Main Street sewer replacement. And so what that addition is the section from John Street, exactly from John Street to Brown Street. We were doing the bump outs, and it made no sense to do the bump outs without doing the pipes, and we had a fixed, we had a contract that was unit priced, and so we were able to add that to it on a pre-bid contract, which we've done. So at the end of the day, there's not a lot that isn't already underway in this capital budget, but we are also, I'll say, spending a fair amount of money this year when you add up all the projects that we're finishing that are already underway, plus those few new additions. You know, it's Jerry, am I correct in saying, how many million are we looking at here?
I want to go back to the previous page, and line item 23.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Line item 23, $4,900 for the asset management system. In our package, there is a proposal from the SCM to apply for grants, and I'm wondering, have we already done that, or is that something we could access before we go forward on that?
So we've engaged with a consultant, Daisy Foster, who is also part of the Atlantic Asset Management Network. They've done some work for us on the water assets, which they'll come and present to us in the near future. We tried to queue that up a little while ago. They're currently doing work for us on our sanitary and stormwater system. They've put us in a really good position in terms of being able to apply for that money and know what we should do with it. And so what the work we've already done sets us up to be ready to apply for that FCM money.
So will there be any need for council to deal with that, or will that happen at the staff level?
So what we'll do, because you've raised it here, is we at the staff level will, there's a bit of work we need to do, one more meeting we need to have as a group to look at all the things that we could do and kind of prioritize as far as what we think the next appropriate steps are. We'll report back to council on that before we make the application.
Thank you.
Okay, what happened? What's that? I'm shocked. Yeah, can you put your light on? Oh, sorry. Couldn't see his name was on it. Yeah, you're good.
Cliff was talking about the asset management system. What about staffing? Is that, do we need staff to do that? Is that part of IT?
So a couple of comments on that is when it says system in here, it is really what we did with that money was a study. We completed a study on the assets. That was what it was. So, but a system the system is about how you manage all of your capital assets, both maintenance as well as replacement and planning for it and making sophisticated decisions. You know, Dave has made a lot of important decisions for the town as our engineer with very few tools to work with. He's done a lot of good things. He's done them well. One of the things that I'll say this is that when we get into this asset management stuff, one of the things that we're finding is a lot of the processes that we've been carrying out through Public Works and a lot of the things that Dave has been doing around you know, asphalt assessment and sidewalk inspections, all that stuff, all those programs, they're all part of asset management. So we have been further ahead in asset management than perhaps we even realized. But what we didn't have was necessarily have it all organized in a way, and we didn't call it asset management, but what these consultants are helping us to do and what this money, if we apply for it and receive it, will do for us, it will allow us to be more organized and more methodical around it. And the work we're doing right now is we're filling in some gaps in the information, and we'll be able to bring forward reports to council to help you understand and help you communicate to the public why, when we're doing, you know, street X or sidewalk Y, why we're doing that and why that's the best bang for the buck. Because we know we don't have enough money to do everything, so we have to be really as strategic as possible in terms of where we focus those dollars.
Okay. What's next?
So, Your Worship, if you have any more questions about any of the items on that page, what we would ask for you is a motion to recommend to council to approve the capital budget as presented, and we can deal with that Thursday night as well. Now, one of the things about this budget that is kind of important, I mean, some of the work is already underway, but the work that is not underway requires approval of the budget before we make any assumptions about that. The other thing I will flag, out of respect for Dave, that he's here, Dave has flagged for us an issue that on a traffic light issue that we have in next year's capital budget. So in the interest of full disclosure here, it may be that we have to look at that sooner than next year. That will become a cash flow issue as opposed to a budgeting issue.
Sorry, Jim.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
Jeff, I'm just missing something here, not sure what budget it is in. The demolition of our share of the demolition cost of the mill.
840 or something?
So yes, Your Worship, in the smaller document, it is the fourth item on the first page. And you'll see that we had previously...
I see it now.
Previously budget 840, we've added to that 160. That brings our share to $1 million, which is what we thought initially. Obviously, the work is tendered, and unless we run into a bunch of extra costs, we should be within that budget.
Should probably put, what's this supposed to be? Economic development? It's got ENV everywhere.
Environmental development.
Environmental development, RDA? What's that?
So, Your Worship, environmental development, so our budget follows a template that is provided by the province through the municipal reporting handbook. Do I have that somewhat close? So environmental development is a category, it's a section. That would include, Jerry, I'm not looking at here, but that typically includes our economic development stuff as well as...
Planning and everything else.
Planning and everything,
yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah, there it is, on the next page, economic development, medical clinics, all that stuff.
Yeah, so we call it that because that's what the handbook says to call it. It isn't necessarily the most intuitively descriptive, but yeah.
All right. Anybody else, any more questions, concerns? What did we do with grants to organizations? What do we do with those grants taxes that we give out?
So you've already approved your grants to organizations, both the operating grants as well as the tax grants, and the operating grants have gone out, and the tax grants have been applied to the accounts.
Good, thank you. All right, so do we need to do anything now?
Make a motion to accept the capital budget as presented, Your Worship.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Let's do it right. Question? What's the next step? Oh, what's the next step? Where do we go from here?
Questions have been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. I said to Angela Collier, she sent me a note. She said, what about Thursday night? I said, just be prepared for the question. What are the next steps?
What's the next step? That's right. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, where do we go from here? Okay, so we're good on those. You're welcome. Thank you, guys. I'm on the wrong page. I got this, okay. So the interim council appointments, committee appointments. Go ahead.
Your Worship, Councillor Dennis has been absent for a few meetings due to her treatments, and we all understand that. There is a sheet. Does everyone have the sheet?
I didn't get
Okay.
it.
So Councillor Dennis is appointed to 4 committees or boards that I think you may want to consider appointing an interim alternate to sit in her place for a couple of reasons. One is the Plan Advisory Committee is one of those committees. It's an important committee, and having good representation on there I think is important. So that's one. The others, we have Communities in Bloom where she chairs, and I'm not sure if we've made a formal appointment of that, but we should. EMO and the Industrial Commission are both joint boards with the other municipalities, and so it would be desirable if another councillor has the time to step into those roles, just from a governance operational perspective on an interim basis, it would be helpful.
Make a motion, your worship, that I will sit, I was a former member of Communities in Bloom, I'll sit on Communities in Bloom. I'll make a motion, Councillor Clifford Hood, sit on the Area Industrial Commission. I'll make a motion.
Are you on it already?
I was gonna,
Or you want to do EMO? Because it won't be me, okay?
what's the next one?
And PAC,
What nights they say?
Tuesdays.
Good, you might be taking one for the team, but.
Well, we got to divvy stuff up here.
In all my years on council, I went to one meeting. They finally put me on the last year I was on council. And by the time the meeting was over, I swear that I had a head with green pus and dragons coming out of my ears in the eyes of most of the other people at the meeting.
Perfect fit then.
Well,
My great-grandfather is
John, too.
supposed
I
to
don't know
have
what
said it
Tuesday
more
nights hold for you, but-
vulgarly than I did.
I'll go on PAC's.
I'll take it. I'll go on.
Councillor Hoods, did he do it?
Can you behave?
Well, I behaved. I asked the right questions.
Yeah.
I did ask the right
So
questions.
are you sure you're okay with that?
And the condos that were promised didn't happen to balance the budget. I asked questions like, aren't you broke? Aren't you insolvent? What do you mean? I won't go any further. It's all history.
Okay. Okay, so here's what we have. We have Cliff at the PAC and the Industrial Commission. Can't see any harm coming to that. Communities in Bloom, Phil, put your boots there. EMO, Jim. Have fun. Okay? It's bad. Okay, can I have a motion for all those to go through? You made the motion. Looking for a seconder. Second. Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? What are you thinking, Wade? No. Oh, you good? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
You're already on PAC, right?
Okay, there were no additions. Oh, okay. No, I didn't realize that. Okay, good. All right. So we've got an in-camera matter, but do we want to do water first? Want to do the water now, Cliff, and then we'll go in camera for the other?
I haven't looked at the water, to be honest. So is it all ready to go?
Here, go ahead, Jeff. What were you going to say?
Go.
I'll chair them.
Not to make light of it, but we did a water rate study a couple years ago, right?
So we're just going to improve rate?
I think I've got water. I've got water, I think.
They've already set the budget for us for a couple years. So what we end up doing at this point is we'll look at the budget they've set for us, but in a year-end process, when we report to the province, report to the UARB, we basically just have to go through as staff and explain the variances. So if we end up doing a project or doing a study that's not in the current budget that's been approved by the UARB, if it's over a certain dollar amount, we have to get their approval anyway, but if not, in a year-end process, they'll ask us questions about what the variances are, and we'll have to explain them to satisfy their requests.
Oh, look, my button's on.
And you're asking me to run this one?
Hey, everybody want to talk? Yeah.
Testing. This one? So, I'm on. So Jerry, what are you asking council to do other than to look at this and to listen to your report? Are we setting a rate tonight?
Well, the rates and...
I say a rate.
Yeah. The rates and studies have been, I guess, already approved through council a while back, if I'm right, Jeff?
So
through the
that's...
Accepting the UARB study. So really, like, for a couple of years, there's not a lot on the financial side to do except report our actuals to them.
Yeah. So what does it look like going forward when we're finished that, whatever?
I did print out a quick one-pager. It's a bit small, because I thought there'd be, you know, what I've given you doesn't really show what actuals are. So this will show you just a little bit of relevance to what we've done with the current year up to date. So we're still working on our March year-end with the auditors here now, but this is where the water utility in the high-level stage sits regarding the budget for the current year ending March. So the very right-hand column is the actuals for the year that we just finished, March of 17.
So $121,000 surplus.
Right now, like I say, we're working with the auditors, do have a few more entries to make, but it looks like we'll have a small surplus.
See, folks, quick read. Didn't take me long. And going forward beyond that, are we still projected to run surpluses with the current rate that we're
Yeah, I
applying?
mean, through the UAB process, there are small increases in salary, wages, those types of things, electrical, those things that typically go up by a few percentages. And then we had built in a few different projects and capital items as well. So all that stuff's in our budget for this year and next, actually.
So this year we had some additional expenses that were not budgeted. I'm talking about the Mako, what are we calling that? The
Street maintenance flow study.
Yeah, we
Yes.
were able to cover those that were billed within the fiscal year and still have a
Yeah, if
surplus?
you look at on the expense side, the revenues came in fairly good as far as the budgeting goes. On the expense side, we had a fair, because our budget is close to what our next year budget will be. But the $242,000 on the right-hand column, that's the second number on the expenses for source and supply. That was large this year because there were some of the costs associated with some compost going to Lake George and back. But at the same time, there were some maintenance and other items down in the transmission and distribution lines that we were able to basically hold back and not do to help offset those. So that's the kind of flexibility that we had in the budget.
Yeah, gotcha. So you've got basically $242,000 actuals on the source and supply expense against a $96,000 budget. So you've been able to cover that difference? Yeah,
and again, we covered it by, in the transmission or distribution, we spent a lot less on maintenance and repairs. There was $206,000 spent on actual, just a couple lines below the 242. The budget was up to 450. Yeah.
Right. So I think it would be in order, Council, unless you have other questions for Jerry, make a motion to approve the budget as presented. Moved by Deputy Mayor Mooney, seconded by Councillor McLeod. Do I have a question? Questions called. All in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion's carried. Thank you. Oh, yes, give me my agenda there. And I need a motion to approve the agenda. What? Moved, seconded. Question, all in favor? Aye. Motion's carried. And the minutes of the last meeting?
So we have 2 minutes, so let's go, I'll make a motion to approve November 24th.
Questions called, all in favor? Aye. Contrary minded?
And I'll make a motion to approve October 15th.
Question? Questions called? All in favor? Aye. Motion's carried. That it? There you go. Okay, good.
We do have an in-camera item. I'd like to have Natalie come down and brief you folks.